Okay, this is Chris's amazing pastry. You need flour, fat and water. You start with, in my case, 8 ounces of flour, 3 ounces of lard and 1 ounce of margarine or stalk. In other words, half the fat to the flour. You could of course do 200 grams of flour and some quantity like 100 grams of fat. And you just smash up the fat bits, best if you cut them into smallish pieces. And then we're going to rub it in with fingers, ideally cold fingers. The idea is to get the flour rubbed into the fat, and the fat rubbed into the flour, so it ends up like breadcrumbs. You're not trying to make bread, which means stretching the flour and producing long gluten-based strands. We're just trying to make it fluffy. You can use a electric hand mixer with balloon whisk attachments, but this is actually better. You don't want it too homogeneous. It's a bit like scrambled eggs. You don't want it turned into an omelette. You still want it a little bit chunky. Shouldn't take more than about 2 minutes. If it goes well, you can perhaps do it in 1 minute, and you can see it's beginning to turn into fine crumbs. There's still a few biggish lumps of fat that just still need to be rubbed in. If you feel it going a bit sort of homogeneous, turning into a sort of sludgy mixture, then you've gone too far or your hands are too hot, because that means the fat's beginning to melt and you haven't got those little light breadcrumbs texture which makes perfect pastry. There. That's pretty good. Okay, having got to a nice breadcrumb texture, we're going to add the same number of 5 milliliter teaspoons as there are ounces of flour. Don't ask me to convert that into fully metric or fully imperial measurements. You need a proper cook's 1 teaspoon. Do some cold fresh water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, I put in 8 ounces of flour. Just get that to grind in a bit. And then we're just going to press that into a ball. And not trying to knead it like flour, like bread, remember. The less working it has at this stage and at the rolling out stage, the better. The ideal thing to do now is to put it in the fridge for half an hour to cool off, to stop any danger of the fat melting. Okay, as I'm going to be making a pie, in other words a 2-layered tart, I'm going to cut this into 2 pieces, one a bit bigger than the other because it's going to line the inside of the tin, the smaller bit being the top of course, so about like that. Now remembering that you don't want to overwork it, and I don't claim to be very expert at rolling things out, but on your favourite rolling board or work surface. Some flour up the rolling pin and try and make something that's roughly round. Always remember, you don't want to over roll it. If all goes horribly wrong, you've had it. It's helpful. Get it moved around on the flour so it doesn't stick on flat. Because if it does stick, you're kind of forced to start things again. As you can tell, this is not an area for huge expertise on my part. It'll taste alright. So that's roughly right. A bit more over there. Not exactly round. And then we're just going to slip it into the pan, probably leaving half of it behind. And there we go. Not one of my best, but this is about making pastry, not making pies. Okay, so I'm going to just trim off the edges. Then you would fill the pie with fruit, or in my case, mince meat. Then we're going to put a top on the pie, and then this is an important bit to make it crispy. We're going to just brush it lightly with water and then put sugar on, and that produces a lovely dry crispy surface. Now, of course, if you're making little mince pies, you'd have made a flat piece of pastry, then cut it out with pastry cutters to make lots of little circles that will fit your little pie dishes or baker's tray. There we are. This pie dish is a little too deep, but never mind. So we're going to roll out the top. Obviously we just need a nice flat round pastry. So see, it's just about the right size, maybe a little bigger. And the pastry is ending up about a millimetre, maybe 2 millimetres thick. You don't want it any thicker than that. So, top on. Crimp it. You can be artistic here if you want. If you want to seal the edges of the pastry even more thoroughly, then put a little layer of water between the edges of the top and the bottom. This is not a work of art, it's a work of deliciousness. Sprinkle a little bit of water. A little cross in to let any steam escape without blowing it, but really it's not going to matter too much. And then be fairly generous with the sugar. It's not that you're trying to make it sweet, it's that you're trying to dry out the dampness of the pastry when it goes into the oven. You don't end up with a soggy one. If you're really careful about slimming, then I guess you could miss this step, but you can see how the sugar is absorbing the water there. Which is a good thing. A bit like putting salt on a joint you're going to put in the oven. There we are. That's it. Put it in an oven, 180 degrees, a minimum of 20 minutes. This one will probably be 30 minutes because the mince meat is quite dense and quite wet. And that's it. Perfect pastry. And there we are. A perfect mince pie. May have to eat it all.